So, welcome to the cook along in Westminster City Council. I'm Nasheen Singh and I will be cooking today Aloo Chole, which is chickpea and potato, which is a traditional Indian dish. And given that it's South Asian Heritage Month, Westminster is celebrating in many ways, and one of the ways is to do a cook along, a live cook along. So welcome everybody. And I believe I am live, so I'm going to wait till someone tells me otherwise. But I think people are joining now. Excellent. I see the numbers coming up, so I'm just going to wait a couple of minutes while people join, and then we'll get started. Excellent, thank you. So we are now live. I can see people are starting to join, which is amazing. So let's get started. My name's Nasheen Singh. I am a member of staff at Westminster City Council, and this month is South Asian Heritage Month, where we celebrate many cultures, faiths, religions, and learn a little bit for ourselves about others. So I will be cooking live today a traditional Indian Punjabi dish, which is Aloo Chole, which means potato and chickpeas. So join me as we cook along. I know some people have bought their ingredients, so they are cooking as we go. But yeah, let's see how we get on. There will be some questions coming up in the chat. I will try and answer some of them as we go along. And obviously I've got some great colleagues in the background who will be also managing the chat and trying to answer some of the questions. So if you've got your ingredients, that's amazing. So join in and we can cook along. Obviously, I might have done a bit of prep before, so here and there you might just be a little bit behind me, but don't worry, we will go through it together. Throw in some questions as we go along, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm feeling very privileged to be representing Westminster Council, as well as my service, which is Children's Services. So I am going to get started, and as we go along, I'm sure people will join in. So if we're ready to kick off, here we go. So I'm going to get my apron first. That is white as well. Probably not the greatest, but here we go. So I have done a bit of pre-prep and I have got all my ingredients out, so it's ready to go as I go along and cook. But yes, please do throw in some questions and see how we get along. So I'm going to start. So I've got my pan. So I've got a pan that is, you can see over it. So normally you would cook in whatever pan you want to, but just for the sake of the cameras and for you guys to see what I am doing, I've put a low pot here so you can see. So what we're going to do is we're going to start, obviously the ingredients and the method is online, so if you can't cook along today, please do go back and visit it at your leisure and try and give it a go. So Aloo Chole is pretty much a vegetarian dish, of course, and as we go along I will try and explain, if you did want to make a meat dish, how you could do that. So for now we will keep this vegetarian, and yeah, as I said, we can improvise as we go along. So I'm going to start off by just throwing in some, I've got some anchor butter, but obviously you can put in anything you cook with already. So that might be olive oil, avocado oil, butter, ghee, whatever you normally would cook your dish with, you can put that in. So I'm just going to get that melting. And as the pan sort of gets a bit hot, I'm going to allow that to happen so that I can hear the sizzling of the next ingredients that I do throw in. So I know it's quite a hot day today, so a number of you are probably out and about, or you may be just sitting inside with the fan on, the aircon. And I don't blame you either way, but it is really hot today. Okay, so I mean to have my back to you. I've got several things that I'm going to throw in at the beginning, which just really helps the cooking, but also gives it that real nice base of your main dish, because what you want to do is get the flavours going right from the beginning, and that's why it's quite important to make sure things like your bay leaves, your cinnamon stick, and your coriander seeds are thrown in right at the beginning before you throw your onions and anything else in. But I've also got ginger and garlic, obviously preference. You could make this dish without all of these things if, you know, for example, if you might be allergic to something or you're not sure, that's fine. But I'm going to use them today because I think it gives it a nice flavour. So in goes my couple of bay leaves, and I'm just going to break my cinnamon stick so that it gives it that nice smell but also flavour. And I'm just going to throw a few of the coriander seeds and just sort of give them a little bit of a grind so that they break up a bit, so when they go into the pan it just gives that really nice smell and aroma, but equally of course it makes your dish taste good too. So you'll hear the noise of that sizzling away, and as that happens, the thing about digital is that you won't be able to smell how nice some of this is smelling. But I'm sure when you are actually cooking the dish, you might be able to, try to appreciate some of these great smells. So I'm going to throw in some garlic. So I'm just going to grate it really quickly here. Of course, you know, it's for your own taste, whatever, how much ever you like. So I'm just going to put about 3 cloves in, which is already smelling nice. And I'm going to put some fresh ginger in. So I'm just going to grate it over the top. And I think the two things, when they come together, particularly at the base of the dish, it tastes amazing, but also it allows it to cook for a little while so that the taste blends in. So that's your ginger, garlic, the coriander seeds, the cinnamon stick and your bay leaves with your butter just sizzling away there. And you'll see just there what that looks like. So before your ginger and garlic sort of burn, because they do cook very quickly, we're going to throw in some onions. Obviously you could choose to do white or red onions. Your preference is your own. Some people do like to cook with red onion, and I can understand why. I quite like red onion. Probably on the side of a salad or a dish. Just brings out some flavours, which is really nice. But today I'm cooking with a white onion, and I bought myself a big Spanish white onion. So I'm going to throw that in as well. So for a dish like this, I put you can put in one sort of medium-sized onion, which is fine. But of course, it's your base of your dish, so you can choose to have as much onion as you like or less as you like. But in most Indian cookings, I think in most Asian cookings, we do use quite a lot of onion to just set the gravy and the base up. So here I'm just going to put a little bit more in. I know that one of my colleagues, Michaela, is cooking along, has got all her ingredients, and she's indicated that Nasheen, just watching you isn't going to be enough for me. I need to cook the dish as well, so that I can enjoy it at the end, otherwise it's just a dish. So that's great. I know that I should have said welcome. I mean, one of the things I should have said is Sat Sri Akal, which is welcome in Punjabi and in Sikhism. And also just to say thank you for being here and watching me cook. And I hope that not only it's about learning about a different dish, but it's also about having some fun, which is good. And I love cooking. And I know that friends and family have also joined, which is amazing, online. So if my mum's online in particular, I've got to make her proud, right? Because she's taught me most of everything I've known. So here we go. And I know one of these, the dish Aloo Chole is one of my mum's favourite too. So that's always good to know. Right, so we've got as far as our onions and our base. I'm going to now throw in some salt and some chilies. Now, the salt obviously is up to you. Again, it's preference. But I've got some red sort of Himalaya salt here, the pink one, sorry. Making a bit of noise here. But yeah, people use different salt. I use sea salt, great. I think it's nice. I'm going to let that cook. And then, of course, when it comes to chilli, it is a preference. Like you can choose how much chilli you want, or if you don't want. And I appreciate, you know, families, you will have young children who might not appreciate a lot of chilli. So you can choose how much chilli you want to put in, if you want to or not. You could also have some fresh chilli on the side of your food, and that way you can still enjoy the chilli, but not necessarily in the dish. So I'm just going to chop a good 3 up here. They are quite hot, so you have to be careful or manage. If you're using sort of fresh chilli for the first time, just think about how much you're going to put in. So that would be important. So I'm just going to chop that up and throw it in there. Left the ends out. There we go. And this is looking great already. I mean, one of the things you might ask is how do you know when the onion is cooked, or it's sort of, you want that brown, that sort of brown look where you'll know it's cooked. But one of the interesting things about chole is that you don't actually have to cook all the onion. Some people do tend to throw in some onion halfway through so that they've got that sense of sort of onion that's half cooked, which also gives it a good, I suppose, flavour. But we're not going to do that today. We're going to cook our onions, and you can see they're just sizzling away there. So while the onions cook, we're going to go on to putting in, the next thing that we're going to put in is all the masalas. And I'll go through each of them. Of course, like I said before, you could use whatever you want to use. I've chosen the masalas that I'm going to use, which is haldi, which is turmeric, garam masala, which I must admit, thank you Mum, is Mum's fresh cooked batch. When I say cooked, she's grinded it all from scratch herself. But you can obviously buy all of these in the shops. And I've also put in some paprika, which to give it the colour but also the flavour. And you know, I'll go through each of those things as we go on. I mean, everybody sort of like, there is masala powders, there are lots of things that you can buy from the shop, so please do feel confident enough to give it a go yourself, which would be good. Just like as this is cooking, I think one of the things is important to talk about, given that it's South Asian Heritage Month, is just a bit about where I've come from and my family, and I'm sort of proud to sort of really talk about the fact that my grandfather, and on both sides, my dad and my mum, they immigrated to the UK in the 1950s. They came as labourers. They applied to the UK embassy as labourers. They arrived in the 1950s, worked in various places across the UK before they settled and felt confident enough to bring their family over. So my dad was, I think, 11 years old or so when he arrived, same with my mum. My mum settled in Birmingham, and my dad's family settled in Southampton, where I'm born and bred from. And my grandfather worked on the docks where obviously the Titanic went from. And so feeling, obviously, whenever I go there, it reminds me a lot about the fact that he's worked there and everything he did for us. So yes, I'm British born in Southampton originally, and I'll answer that question. And yeah, it's the life of Western, Eastern sort of upbringing. I went to a Catholic girls' school, and obviously coming home to a very traditional Sikh family, it allows you to embrace both cultures, but also makes you feel very privileged to be able to do both. So yeah, so that's great. One of the questions I've been asked in the chat is that what made me choose this dish? Well, I'll say a couple of things really. I mean, in the lockdown, I did do a live cooking for one of our young people. So I'm head of service for looked after children and care leavers in Westminster. So we're pretty much their corporate parent, children that are in our care. And I cooked a dish of a young man, a Mujahid, who'd shared his dish that his mum had taught him, which was lovely, from Sudan. And I cooked that, which was lamb and okra. Really enjoyed cooking that live. And there's also a Westminster cookbook, which of course you could look online for or purchase, and all of those recipes are in there. But what made me cook this is because I think, do you know, I thought about what I'm going to cook, and given I cooked a meat dish before, I thought I'll cook a vegetarian. But I think chickpeas is one of those things that that you can sort of embrace in many things that you cook in or you use. So my mum makes so chickpea very sort of like a curry on the side of samosas and spring rolls, which is really nice. But I think I love chickpeas. I love how they taste. I think they're healthy, and I've just sort of grown up on this particular dish that I think you just really can't get enough of. So I chose this probably more because I felt it's one of my favourite as a child, and even now, and I love making aloo chole. So yeah, so that's the reason why I chose it. Okay, so as you can see, some of the onions are cooking really well here, and you can see the cinnamon stick and everything else is just sizzling away there, and it does smell very nice. You know, I can be a bit biased about my own cooking here. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to throw in some spices just to get things going a bit. So I'm going to laugh now because any Indian or Asian family, you've got to, if you just simply cannot be culturally with it if you haven't got one of these boxes. And it's a small sort of container, but it's got all the spices in there. I mean, I'm sure you can buy them or look online for them, but they're a godsend. And my mum gave me this when I got married, so I'm gonna throw this in. I have to say that. But they're quite. If you see them in a family, in an Asian family, you'll know exactly what it is. But here in it's got all my favourite masalas and spices. So I'm going to start by throwing some of them in. So to give it some colour but also some flavour, I'm going to throw in haldi, which is known as turmeric in English, and I'm going to throw in a little bit there. Let's cook that. You can see it's giving it a nice colour. With that, I'm going to throw in the homemade masala, which looks like this. But again, when you buy the garam masala in the shops, that is also what it will look like. So I'm going to throw a couple of spoons in there and give that a little whiz. What you'll find is your ingredients is like coming along, like it's sticking together, which is absolutely fine. At this point, some people might want to put some water in, but I just like the fact that the masalas are cooking and you can smell them really nicely coming along. So I'm just going to let that simmer there. And then finally, I'm just going to throw in some paprika, which gives it a good colour, but also some nice flavour. So I'm going to get rid of that box there. As that sort of cooks away on low heat, because it is sticking a little bit, which is, again, absolutely fine, I'm going to sort my tomatoes out. Now, it's good to put the tomatoes in as this is cooking, because one of the things I've learned is that your onion stops cooking once you put the tomatoes in, so always good to do that when you think you're ready. And I don't know how people like their tomatoes. I mean, I'm not a great fan of tomatoes, unfortunately, but I do like to taste my food rather than seeing it. So I'm going to throw this into the blender just to give it a quick whiz there, so that it's just all chopped up nicely, which I think is always a good thing. And of course, you know, you could do that however you choose to do it. Going to make a slight noise for a couple of seconds. It's not going around. There you go. Okay, that's not very. This is what happens with live, isn't it? It's because I put it in the wrong way. I'm going to give it one more go. But yeah, I don't know, people sometimes use tinned tomatoes. I always like to use fresh if I can. But obviously I appreciate things can get really busy, so you might choose to do that, which is fine. Okay, this ain't going nowhere. That's what happens on live, isn't it? Anyway? So that's fine. I'm just going to chop them up anyway, really quickly, rather than keep giving it a go. And this is where it goes. So I'm just going to square it up. Yeah, so you could put in any type of tomatoes you like. I've got these vine red tomatoes here. Like to get everything from my local, which is good. And I'm sure you've got your favourite and local area too. So I'm going to throw those in like so. They're all squared up, but as we go along in the cooking, they will sizzle away and be less big. I don't know what everybody's been up to this week, coming up to Thursday, with the heat being at 30. You must be doing some nice things. I know the kids are on school holidays, so a lot of people on holidays, well, I mean, it's working. I want to do half. There you go. Probably put too much tomato in there. There we go. So it gives it that little bit of gravy, I suppose, or a bit of water in there, so that's quite good. We're just going to let that cook away for a little bit before we then start to put in our aloo, which is our potatoes, and also our chana, which is our chickpeas. There we go. So that's what it looks like. You've got a nice sort of paste there, but also just some good colour, which is always great. And there we go. So that's coming along really nicely. And then we're going to, now that sort of the base is really done well, you can then sort of start adding in your actual ingredients, the ingredients of the title itself, which is Aloo Chole, which is really good. So let that go and sizzle for a bit. So there we go. Just to promote again, obviously the ingredients is on the website and that's been thrown in, I think. So one of the questions is, what do you enjoy much about cooking? What do you enjoy? That's a good question, because I think, and I can only give you my experience of my own, but I think in a lot of cultures, cooking is something that's really does bring families together and brings friends and family, closer. And I can't remember like a weekend where somebody doesn't come around, or you've decided to sort of have family around, or somebody just turns up. And you just bring people together through cooking, I think. And, I don't know a lot about people's lifestyles, and of course, there's times when you are working extremely hard and you don't get to cook every day. But cooking is always planned in our family. I mean, even now that I've moved moved out of my family, moved to London, it's something that we do every day. But with my mum and my family, it's something that we did all the time. So I just think it embraces us, and I think a lot of people would appreciate actually food is a very important thing, whether it's a barbecue you're having or whether it's traditional food, and I suppose celebrating lots of cultures like Eid and Diwali, Christmas. You know, one of the big things about Christmas would be, you know, your turkey or your chicken or whatever you decide to have. And I suppose for us, like in terms of Punjabis, food in itself is such a warm inspiration. But just talking about sort of being Punjabi, I mean, being from a Sikh background, one of the things that is very important in Sikhism, one of the main pillars, is around seva. And seva basically means giving. It means giving back to your community. It means, you know, supporting others. And one of the three pillars is always about trying to embrace a good living and an honest living. And then when you do earn your goods, it's about serving and supporting others. And that's why I suppose the Gurdwara, which is the Sikh temple, which many of you might have heard, it is a place where it's open pretty much all the time, but also allows the community to come in and enjoy the food. And langar is what it's called. It's served every day. And, you know, in the big Gurdwaras in Punjab and in India, it will feed thousands of people, and the food never runs out, you know, and everybody's a volunteer there. They will go and they will do what we call seva, which is give back, and they will serve their community. And I'm sure even in the UK, if any of you have ever gone to a Gurdwara, I mean, you would never ever be turned away. So I would say definitely go and experience what that's like. There's never any restrictions. Everybody's welcome, and everybody's always made welcome. And there will always be food after, so you will get your chapatis, roti, you will get possibly a dish like this, which is served quite regularly at the Gurdwara. So think about if that's something that you want to do. You might want to check out where your local Gurdwara is and feel like, you know, you can learn a little bit about the culture and see how the Sikhs actually, you know, do the seva at the Gurdwara, which would be good. So, going back to this dish, we are now sort of ready probably for the potatoes to go in. So I'm going to grab them here now. I've put, I think, in my ingredients that just to square up your potatoes and throw them in. So I've just done some already, but I'm just going to cut a couple here and have the potatoes ready to go in. So I've just put some here, just squared them up. So I'm going to throw them in on top of the sauce and the tomatoes, which is just letting that lovely smell out now. There you go. So our tomatoes have gone in. And one of the things I should have said about the chickpeas as well, which I think I did put in my recipe anyway, which is that some people choose to have a tinned chickpeas, which is fine too. But I've soaked mine over a day and a half, just in water, plain water. Just bought the chickpeas themselves and soaked them. And I just think, I just think it's nice to just do that way. But obviously, if you don't have time, and particularly today, if you're cooking along or you haven't had the time to do that, that's not a problem. You could either do that another time or just soak the chickpeas today and cook them, you know, in a day or so, or a couple of days if you just leave them in water. So here you see all my potatoes are nicely coated with the tomato, the onion and all the masalas, and it's absolutely, I mean, my mouth is watering with the smell of all of those masalas in there, which is just okay. So at this stage, some people do like to throw a little bit of water in so that it doesn't stick. I have got some on standby, and it's literally, I'm just going to put a little bit in just to keep that going, and then I'm going to put the gas up a little bit higher so that it's starting to cook. And I've just allowed the potatoes to go in first, purely because I've already like soaked and half boiled my my chickpeas. So when they go in, they pretty much will take less time. But obviously, if you buy the tinned one, it will already say on there boiled. So I suppose it will take less time. It's whatever your preference is. But I will show you what I've done in a bit. So yeah. So I don't know if there's any questions that I might have missed as we went along, but I will try and answer some of them. Just one of the questions I think I was asked last time was, because I cooked a meat dish, they wanted to know how to make that vegetarian dish. So given that I've cooked a vegetarian dish, if you wanted to make this a meat dish, I would say everything that we've done, apart from obviously throw the potatoes in, everything we've done could still be, yeah, they are. The potatoes are raw while they've gone in. I've literally just chopped them up and put them in. I never pre-boiled them. Yeah, so if you wanted to make a meat dish, you would do everything we did just so far, apart from the potatoes. And you could then, at that stage, like now, you would throw in your chicken. So your base is pretty much there. And of course, you know, you might want to throw other things in, given it's a meat dish, but you could still run with what we've done so far. But instead of the potatoes and the chickpeas, you would throw in your chicken. I would say chicken would go well with this base. And I'm guessing once you've put it in, you've added your water, you would simmer it and keep it on low gas for at least, I would say, a good 40 minutes, if not longer, depending on the size of your chicken pieces. And yeah, then take it from there. So that's probably how I would make that a meat dish, if those are the things that people might be interested in. I appreciate not everybody likes vegetarian or prefers meat, so I'm trying to sort of do both. But today, like I said, this is a vegetarian dish. So here, you could see it's just all sizzling away. Again, you could add more water. The potatoes were raw. I've just chopped them up into little square pieces so that they cook quicker. And that's that. So it is looking really good. Again, you can have some water. You can add it as you go along if you think it's getting stuck or you're worried that you might burn it. So you could do that as you go along. So just to show you the chickpeas, so here's the chickpeas that I've soaked for a day and a half, and then earlier today I just pre-boiled them a little bit just to give them that head start. But you don't have to do that. You can put it in. It just means that it's going to take you longer to cook the chickpeas, but that's not, you know, you're not in any rush. You just put it on a low heat and continue to do that. And what I should have said, and I know it is online, is that this dish will serve a good, I would say, 4 people, a good 4 adults, along with whatever you choose to have it with, which we'll come to. So obviously the ingredients that I've put up is for about 4 adults. Anything else you want to, if you're catering for a bigger party, then obviously double your ingredients. And obviously if it's just a couple or less, then I would say half the ingredients. And go with it that way. But even if you go with what I've put online, which is for 4 people, the best thing about this dish is that you could put it in the fridge and it will last you a good couple of days at least. So, you know, there's no really harm in going for it. Okay, so at this stage, I'm actually going to throw in my chickpeas now. I'm not going to throw all of them in because my dish is smaller. But I did put, I think it was a cup of chickpeas online, is what I've said, which roughly what I've thrown in is. And you can see just there, it's just doing well with the with the potatoes. Sorry, sort of disappeared off off the live camera for a minute there. But here we go. Right. So this is what it looks like right now. So I would say it would need time to cook, so I would put a little bit of water in and would just put the lid on and leave it on low for it to simmer. The things that we are pending to put in, which is more closely to when the dish is cooked, will be our lemon. I'm putting lemon in. Of course you could put lime in, but I chose lemon, and also our fresh coriander, which I'll come to. So this is what it looks like. You can see everything just sitting in there nicely. It's got a good colour, which has been mostly from the masalas, like the turmeric and the paprika, and it's just got that nice aroma where the cinnamon, the bay leaf, the coriander seeds have really just brought the dish to life. And of course, I should have said that, you know, the cinnamon sticks and the bay leaves, you could just take them out at the end, or just leave them in the dish, but obviously not great to eat, they're more for flavour. So don't think about putting those in your mouth, but everything else is looking good. So yeah, that's simmering away. And if there is any questions as I go along, please do let me know. I think I've realised I say a lot. And I love cooking, like I said, and I love Nadia. I think my inspiration is Nadia. She cooks some incredible things, and she was from the British Bake Off, and she won that year, and I can't remember what year it is, but I'm sure somebody would know. And she's got a couple of books out now, but just watching her cook she's been a great inspiration. But I was going to say, as we're sort of cooking along, is one of the things that I'm really proud about, and I've been with Westminster for 5 years now, in the Children's Services Department, as I've said, working with looked after children, care leavers, children with disabilities, and our unaccompanied asylum seeking team. What I would say is that even with our young people, food is a real, it's a real thing that brings people together. And in one of our buildings, Orchardson Street, where we meet with our young people, we have a really big kitchen. And there's a thing called Tuesday Group, where young people come together and there'll be different things that are going on. But whatever's going on, it will always be around food. And yes, of course, there's been days where pizza's been ordered and different things, but there's also times when young people cook, or they teach us one of their favourite dishes. And one of the months, our director, Nikki Crouch, did a curry for our young people, and it went down extremely well, and I think that's really great. It's about giving back, but also sharing our different upbringings, culture, food. You know, it's educational. I think cooking is something that's part of our lives, embraced in our lives. So to be able to do it a little bit well, or learn a little bit about food, I think is, well, it's important, particularly, I think, for me and my upbringing. So, yes, that's a little bit about that. So that's going well. Do throw some questions into the chat if you want me to answer any. But yeah. So this is just sizzling away, and again, like I said, you could add a bit more water, or you could just put the lid on and keep it on low, and it will cook. It will need a good, I would say, 20 minutes or so before you can check. And the best way to sort of check whether it's cooked, which I'm sure many of you already know, is that you just take the chickpea or the potato and just push it against the pan, and if it breaks well, you know that you're pretty much there. So this dish is obviously, it will need a good 20 minutes or so. So the only two things that were left to add in there is a nice fresh coriander, which I've put here, which is here. And I will just cut that up and put that in. And also a squeeze of some of the lemon, which I've put here. And you could do that closer to the end. It just allows it to just sort of come together, but gives you that real zesty taste, tangy taste, which is always nice. So you would just squeeze that on top. But given sort of like time and stuff, I have definitely here's one I made earlier. So I will get to that bit when I move this over to this side for it to carry on. So I will go through that. And obviously, having the dish, you can have it with many things as you choose to cook. You could have it with rice, with naan, or with roti, which is really nice, which is chapati, so you can roll it and make it yourself. So here is a dish and what it would look like at the end. And I've got some rice here, as well as some naan, and I'm just going to throw that coriander on top, which I think you can see, and there's my lemon, which I'm just going to squeeze over the top, which is right there. And so this is what it would look like at the end, and you can see the potato and the chickpeas cooked and it's come along really nicely. This is quite a dry one. Of course you can make it a little bit more, if you like a gravy sort of dish, you can put add a bit more water or tomatoes and make it a real thick and nice gravy. But this is mine, so I'm gonna dig in. I'm gonna have a go. My mouth's already watering. It's that evening time, isn't it, where you had a long day and you're ready to have your meal. So here it goes. You know what? There's nobody else here to taste this, but it's good. I could taste the lemon, but I put in extra chilies in this one, which of course I love. So it just tastes amazing. So I don't know about you and how far you've got, but it looks delicious, it tastes delicious. And that is how you cook aloo chole, which is chickpea and potato. Now I've got put some naan here, of course, so you know, could have that in a bit, but it tastes really nice, but it's also really refreshing. And I suppose on a hot day like this, hi Pally, it's a hot day like this, I think it just comes along nicely, personally. So that's my dish that I've cooked. I'm going to allow this to cook and continue there, so when my family gets home they've got something to eat. But I've really enjoyed cooking this dish today. I really appreciate everybody who's been online, the great comments, and yeah, just to literally say thank you very much. It's been an absolute honour to be representing Westminster City Council, and also I'm not going to deny Children's Services, but there's been a lot of prep behind the scenes. So Michaela, Jessica, there's been lots of people who've been helping to make this possible today and live, so I really appreciate everything everyone's done. Yeah, and of course if there's any questions that we haven't, yes, it will definitely. Someone's asked whether imagine that tamarind would go really well. Yes, it would definitely, and if you could throw that on top, whether it's the sauce or boil it and put it on top, that would definitely go well. I would agree with you with that. But if there's any sort of questions I haven't answered, or as we've gone along haven't managed to, definitely will get back to you. Please do continue to support Westminster, but also embracing the South Asian Heritage Month, which has been great, and I'm sure across the community as well as other organisations you'll be doing something along the lines to celebrate. So that's been me. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here live and to be supported by you all. I am going to finish on that note, and I am going to continue my meal here and enjoy it. Well, I'm sure yours is still cooking, Michaela, but trust me, it'll be ready in about 20 minutes or so. You can enjoy it. Thank you so much. Have a good evening and enjoy the sun.